You might want to check the label the next time you buy chicken at your grocery store because it might have come from a lab backed by Bill Gates. If you guessed Bill Gates for your lab-grown meat, if Bill Gates was on your lab-grown meat bingo card, then you win the night.
Okay. Do you picture this like in Star Wars, where she like 1/4 portion, and then she puts water in it?
Yeah,
becomes big.
Disgusting. That's what I picture, and that's actually what it is. We're going to show you some video of this in a second here. That it might have come from lab. The meat that you buy at the grocery store might have come from a lab backed by Bill Gates instead of a farm. This story might leave you questioning the very essence of our food supply. Over the past few days, the United States Department of Agriculture, the kids call it the USDA for short, has just approved the sale of lab-grown meat from not one, but two companies funded by Bill Gates. That's right, folks. The man who wants to control every aspect of our lives is now trying to dictate what we eat. The two companies that just won approval are company number one called Good Meat. The company number two is Upside Foods. First, can we just take notice of their names? Good Meat and Upside Foods. Good Meat's parent company is called Eat Just. In other words, the meat you currently are eating from a farm is bad meat or somehow unethical, is what they're saying with these names, right? I work at Eat Just because I'm a just person.
Oh, it'll work. It'll work. Look at all the people that buy all natural and all that from the grocery stores because it just sounds like it's the right thing to do.
For sure.
I eat at Good Meat. Oh, I get my meat from Good Meat. So it's not a slaughtered meat. It's good meat.
And what's the name of the Impossible Meat? The burgers that have...
The Impossible Burger, yeah.
And there's the other one.
Yep.
There's what's the competitor to that?
Beyond Meat.
Beyond. Okay.
Beyond.
Yeah, Beyond.
Okay.
So, their names are one thing, right? That basically your meat is bad. Somehow you're unethical for the meat you eat. You're currently unjust if you eat from a farm. We'll unpack that in a minute. Let's start with what proponents of lab-grown meat say about it. First, they say this process eliminates the need for animal slaughter, paving the way for meat production that doesn't require any animals at all. Secondly, proponents of lab-grown meat, the stuff you're seeing here on your screen, shows that there are significant environmental benefits. They say this, right? That traditional animal agriculture contributes significantly to greenhouse gas emissions and deforestation. Again, this is what they say.
But it does require an animal. You need to pluck a feather or something to get the DNA. You do need a host.
Right. You do need animal proteins. This is why it's not, for vegetarians, for vegans, you can't have this lab-grown meat because it still comes from animal proteins, right? So if they're
going to pluck feathers for beef, they're doing it wrong already. So I'm going to throw that out there.
Some sort of dinosaur meat. Anyway, first they say this process eliminates the need for animal slaughter, paving the way for meat production that doesn't require any animals at all. Secondly, proponents of lab-grown meat claim that there are significant environmental benefits. Traditional animal agriculture contributes significantly to greenhouse gas emissions and deforestation. Again, this is what they say. And how exactly does this work? Well, according to Andrew Noyes, who is the head of PR for Good Meat's parent company called Eat Just, the lab-grown meat, stuff in the Petri dish, also known as cell-based or cultivated meat, is produced directly from animal cells, cultivated in what he calls bioreactors, with the help of nutrients like amino acids. He says to picture massive brewery-like vats, rather than petri dishes in sterile laboratories. Once ready, the meat is then collected from these bioreactors and then processed. He says it looks like minced chicken. Now, you might be wondering, why should we be worried about lab-grown meat? Well, for starters, it's an affront to our traditional agricultural industry, which has been the backbone of the United States for centuries, and family farms are being crushed by regulations, and now they face direct competition from these lab-grown alternatives. I think it's a direct attack. I mean, it's really, to my mind, a direct attack on our hardworking farmers and ranchers who have dedicated their lives to feeding America, and frankly, the rest of the world, but we're focusing on America in this story. We recently had a Wyoming rancher on the show who talked about these attacks, and she talked about this lab-grown meat problem.
So I'm certainly not an expert on, how much land they require. What I do know that we saw in the United States was the meatless options were the last things left in the meat case. During the pandemic, everybody was eating the real products. Every food source has an environmental footprint, period, right? Yes. There's an environmental impact to everything that we eat, whether it's plant or whether it's animal. What I do know is here in the United States, we are losing hundreds of acres of some of our best quality crop ground every single day as urban expansion occurs. They're building housing developments, they're putting up schools and parking lots and, shopping structures. And that's land we will never get back in production. Land is a finite resource. And so, we can't make more of it. So where's all of this additional food going to come from? Because to even come close to replacing the nutrition that we would need to replace by eliminating animal source proteins, how would we ever begin to grow enough additional crops without the land being available to do that? And I think that's something that I constantly ask that no one has an answer for, because the reality is I don't think that you can. We simply do not have the land available.
But the implications go beyond economic devastation. Go ahead, David.
Well, I was going to ask, think about the ecosystem. So it's what are you going to have? You're going to have solely now milk producing and nothing else, no more leather, no more, there's not going to be this circle of things that come from one animal. It's not like it's just producing meat. They have different things that they produce. So it's you're going to have to get those sources from somewhere. And then you have all of these cattle. What are they going to do? Just euthanize them and waste that meat? Because the whole industry will be disrupted. That just makes zero sense.
Right. And she talks about in this interview about how much carbon or nitrogen, I can't remember, is trapped under ranches like this, because there's a whole circle in place, is that when these grazing animals graze, they encourage the growth of plants, which is good for the environment. This is all true. So we would just completely remove this from the ecosystem.
Yeah. And so, it's devastating for these farmers. It's devastating for the economy. It's devastating for the ecology, but they don't want to admit it. They want to kind of pretend that it's not, and they'd rather focus on the meat that you're getting from these farmers. And the implications go beyond this economic devastation. Lab-grown meat poses serious health risks, by the way. The mainstream media conveniently ignores this part of the story. These synthetic creations are produced in laboratories using unknown chemicals and processes. We have no idea what the long-term effects of consuming such unnatural products might be in our bodies. Are we willing to sacrifice our health for this sort of convenience of lab-grown meat? Bill Gates doesn't want you to think about this.
Well, I think that it speaks to... Do you want to let him speak?
No.
I think it speaks to, though, the sort of faddism of food, especially in the American diet, because people will sort of buy into it, and the stock market will buy into it. So when you think about the popularity of Beyond Burger, Impossible Burger, it seems very chic. The last time I was in the U.S., I couldn't get over how many aisles of collagen coffee powders there were in the Whole Foods. And I was like, what the hell is this? This is new since I was home last. Collagen coffee, we love that shit. We eat it up because if it seems like it's going to promote anything and we can put it into something else, right? It's just, it's almost too easy. It's too easy to manipulate us with food fashion.
Yeah.
Well, and also if you think about it, if they take control of all the farms and they make it basically illegal to produce meat. So you have ranchers that produce good meat right now, right? So they have no control over what they can put in that meat. What they can put in the milk. If they're making it in a lab, they can put whatever they want in it and not tell us. We'll be getting inoculated with all kinds of stuff, most likely, and it's we'd have no control. So that's why I having the ability to go to a local farmer and get meat that I know how it's raised. I know what it's eating. I know what's in its body. But I think they're losing control of that regulation because that movement is getting a lot more popular. More people are eating that way. More people want to know where their food comes from. And I don't think they like that.
And making demands of these ranchers to say, hey, the food that we do not want mRNA shots in this meat. Can you make sure that there's no mRNA shots going into this beef? And ranchers can say, yeah, I can do that, and I can serve you specifically. This is the meat that we're not using these shots with, and these antibiotics and these other things. So, are we willing to sacrifice our health for the convenience of this lab-grown meat. Bill Gates doesn't want you to think about that. In fact, Bill Gates is the biggest backer of these companies. He's heavily funded these lab-grown meat companies to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. But when you dive more deeply into where his money is going, you're going to notice something interesting. Bill Gates, a few years ago, planted the seed with the mainstream media and $13 million to media organizations. Listen to this. He had the goal, of course, of pushing a plant-based meat narrative. He donated $13 million to The Atlantic magazine and The Guardian. And soon after he donated money to these newspapers, well, they started writing articles about fake meat. It's amazing how money buys the media. Look at this headline. This is in The Guardian after he donates the money. Plant-based meat, by far the best climate investment, report finds. Here's another one. Oh, The Guardian's really on this beat suddenly. Why is The Guardian so obsessed with this? The most damaging farm products? Organic pasture-fed beef and lamb, writes The Guardian. Wow.
What?
Hey, thanks for the money, Bill Gates. Here's an article.
Take a look at the seed oil industry. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Here's another article from The Guardian. Remember The Guardian, by the way, was the newspaper that broke the
Edward Snowden.
I mean, how they have fallen. Anyway, here's The Guardian. Climate-friendly diets can make a huge difference, even if you don't go all-out vegan. Yeah, here, eat the fake meat, it points out. Here's another one. Here's The Atlantic. Also took money from Bill Gates. What's different about the Impossible Burger?
It's gross.
And here's another one. Here's the other one. Plant-based food entrepreneurs are marketing their meatless products to omnivores. And then here's another Atlantic article. Will we ever stop eating animal meat, asks The Atlantic. Thanks for your money, Bill Gates. We need more moral arguments against meat. We need a technological revolution in better, cleaner food, by Derek Thompson. Hey, thanks for your money, Bill Gates. We'll write an article for you. This is how the media works. You send them $13 million and they will back your narrative. So how do we know that Gates is invested in promoting plant-based meat? Well, he's done countless interviews on the subject, and he's put billions of dollars promoting it. Here he is during an MIT interview. Bill Gates' rich nations should shift entirely to synthetic beef, he says in this interview. Gates told the MIT Technology Review, quote, I don't think the poorest 80 countries will be eating synthetic meat. I do think all rich countries should move to 100% synthetic beef. He said, you can get used to the taste difference. And the claim is they're going to make it taste even better over time, he says. Eventually, that green premium is modest enough that you can sort of change your behavior of people or use regulation to totally shift the demand. I mean, reading that statement, it's like Dr. Evil statement that I'm reading.
Yes,
I mean,
but it's true, though, because if you can get someone convicted enough, for instance, we tried to eat gluten-free for a while and we still don't eat a lot of gluten. But in the United States, I would get these gluten-free bread products and I'd be like, it's the same, right, honey? Right? Like
we'd try to convince ourselves
I would try and convince myself that I could get used to it, that it was fine. And they're awful. And then
if they get it close to tasting decent, it's filled with like 1,000 other chemicals.
Yes.
So what are you doing to yourself?
Well, and think about how easy it was for them to get us all on board with CFL light bulbs. Like we all replaced every bulb in our house with CFL light bulbs. And then we found out later how bad they were. They can't dispose of them. And it's like we all bought into it. So they can sell this stuff so easily on the convenience, on, hey, it's better for the environment. Like so many people are going to buy into this. And at the end of the day, like, then that's like perfect for them. I think it's funny too. I called Bill Gates the crossroads of corruption because it's like all of this corruption leads to him, and it's so weird.
Yeah. Well, what's weird too is that something's going on with Bill Gates because over the past few weeks, I have I've had Whitney Webb here on the show, and I've asked her this question. But then, why are suddenly we're getting this like mainstream media hit pieces on Bill Gates? It's weird. And then today, front page of the Wall Street Journal, big expose about how girls who would go and interview for jobs at his office were like asked all sorts of like sexual questions and all sorts of really creepy stuff. So something's about to happen to Bill Gates. There's some sort of
I wonder if he built Matt Lauer's door.
Who knows? Something's coming, though, for him. I don't know what it is, but there's some sort of something's unfolding. Anyway, just to go back to his statement, you can get used to the taste difference. And the claim is they're going to make it taste even better. And he says you can sort of change the behavior of people or use regulation to shift that demand. So he knows how this works. Basically going to force you to eat this. So he believes all rich countries should move to 100% synthetic beef, he says. This is a threat to our freedom of choice, in my opinion, because we have a God-given right to choose what we eat. And imagine a world where the only options available are a manufactured beef in a lab or a manufactured chicken in a lab, controlled by the likes of Bill Gates. That's what we're moving to. This is a step towards complete control over our food supply, giving powerful, hungry elites the ability to manipulate and dictate what we put on our plates. It's an assault on our individual freedoms and our right to make choices for ourselves. Just look at what's happening in the Netherlands today. Huge protests today, Thursday. In fact, we had a lot of viewers last night saying, oh, Thursday, big protests in the Netherlands for the farmers. Massive protests. They've taken 3,000 farms away. Farmers' lives ruined. Their goal is to remove all farms and traditional meat production, which they believe is killing the planet. With no evidence, by the way, they say this. Never mind, last week we saw a new report saying the Earth has actually been cooling over the last 20 years instead of heating up. But don't tell them that. By the way, that story got no mainstream media coverage. That was like a fart in the wind. It went away real fast, which is the best place to fart. So much for your cows are causing the Earth to heat up argument. So it's making the Earth get really warm and hot. Or is it? No, actually, the opposite's happening. But that's inconvenient. But what about the environmental impact of this lab-grown meat? Is it somehow going to save the planet? Advocates claim it's more sustainable as an alternative, but that couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, the resources required to produce lab-grown meat on a large scale are astronomical. In fact, it uses a massive amount of energy intensive, that you wouldn't believe. Not to mention the massive amounts of water and chemicals involved to make this happen. In fact, a recent study by UC Davis found that lab-grown meat could be up to 25 times worse for the environment. Up to 25 times worse. 25x, not like one time or two times. No, 25 times worse. Here is UC Davis in an interview in California. Watch.
This morning, lab-grown meat made from animal cells is thought to be better for the environment, but a new study from UC Davis shows that lab-grown meat could potentially have a worse carbon footprint. Joining us live with the details of this new study is one of the authors, Edward Spank. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Happy to be here.
Edward, tell us the top takeaways from the study.
Yeah, so we conducted a study, and it shows that there's a risk that cultured meat actually might be worse for the environment in some situations than animal agriculture. Much of this risk is that, if we're using production methods typical of the pharmaceutical industry, it requires really resource-intensive ingredients to grow this material than if we grow it in sort of a food production environment.
Oh, interesting.
Who'd have thought?
Next time, Edward, adjust your camera so you don't look like a tiny person. Anyway, to me, it's clear this so-called solution is actually exacerbating the very problems that it claims to solve. It's just another scheme by the World Economic Forum globalist agenda to control and manipulate the masses and to make billions of dollars of profits in the process. We must support our local farmers, I believe, and I think we need to reclaim our food system before it's too late. We are watching it slip away, guys. Thank you to the farmers in the Netherlands and the people in the Netherlands who are rising up and saying, hey, this political party, this fake political party that was supposed to be supporting us is actually not. And we need your support. 3,000 farms taken away. It's coming to the United States. It's happening already.
Yeah, and I feel like we're going to be inundating our body with synthetics. Like these synthetics aren't good. Everything that a cow produces is natural. I want to eat natural stuff that my body is able to break down naturally. My body has to figure out how to produce synthetics and how to break those down. And I don't want my body going through that, because who knows what that's going to do. Yeah.
I mean, you saw the World Health Organization today, after decades of legal battles about aspartame, finally, now the World Health Organization is going to label aspartame as a cancer-causing agent. Yeah, the stuff that's in Diet Coke.
And Yogurt.
Yeah, the stuff that people eat, like, hey, it's aspartame. It's fine. At least I'm not putting on calories. No, but you are dying
The
of
stuff
cancer.
they don't allow in most countries other than the United States. There's some countries that won't allow it. That and sodium benzoate too, which is a preservative we use here that they won't use in other countries.
So let us know your thoughts on this. Will you guys be eating the Bill Gates lab-grown meat?
Well, it's interesting because Bjorn Lomborg in his book, False Alarm, does talk about how this might revive the meat industry, how innovation is really going to get us out of climate change and not, these climate policies that politicians put forth, such as like King Charles this week put on a climate clock in London to tell us how much time we have left until 2030 and we hit this emissions goal or we don't. And so I do believe in the power of innovation to make certain changes, to make better cars, to make better stoves. Those kind of things do seem to be real solutions. But when you think about meat grown in the same way that vaccines are made, the way he put it, like it would work the same as the pharmaceutical industry, then I'm out. That's not the not the innovation that I want when it comes to meat.
Yeah, in a petri dish in a lab with all of those chemicals and those processes. Anyway, let us know.
And they're getting emergency use authorization for meat.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Did you guys get your meat? Did you guys get your meat injection?
Well, yeah. Then you think about those two merging, right? And it's like, oh, here's a meat with a DTaP vaccine. Just eat it. You'll be better off.
Well, that's the thing, right? We might be getting mRNA and other meat. Like you might be getting these vaccines shoved right in the meat, right in this process. You wouldn't even know it, right?
Well,
to David's point earlier.
Most of these cows are given ivermectin, and a lot of it passes through to their urine and gets into the soil. And so we do absorb those things in an indirect system, and it all wet already.
Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.